Hello students and welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Shafali Nagpal from Bhagat Phul Singh Mahila Vishwavidyalaya. Today we are going to talk on the module International Trade, its concepts and overview under the paper International Business Operations. After studying this module, you will be able to know about what is the meaning of the international trade, what is the nature and its importance for a country, what are the trends of the international business and growth, what are the advantages and disadvantages of it, and brief about the theories propounded for the international trade. All countries need goods and services to satisfy wants of their people. Production of goods and services requires various resources, but every nation has limited resources. No nation is self-reliant and self-sufficient. One nation cannot produce all the goods and services that it requires. It has to buy it from other nations of the world, which it cannot produce or produces less than its requirement. In the same way, a nation also sells its surplus production of the goods and services to the other countries. India too buys from and sell to the other countries various types of goods and services. It imports the goods which are not sufficiently produced or are more demanded and export the products which are in excess and are demanded by the other nations. This exchange of goods and services among the nations across the borders is called international trade. It is complex in nature. It involves various currencies of different nations among which trade takes place and is regulated by the various national as well as international institutions, rules, and laws. International trade allows a nation to expand its markets for both goods and services that otherwise may not have been available. Due to international trade, a consumer in India can enjoy a ride on the American car, watches the television made by Japan, relish the South American bananas, drink Brazilian coffee, etc. International trade allows the global product at better prices to the consumers, more income to the investors, increase the competition, make the products available at the better prices, and growth of the economy. There are various definitions provided by the different persons. Some of them are defined as, according to the Wasserman and Holtman, international trade consists of transactions between residents of the different countries. According to the Marad, the international trade is a trade between nations. According to Ogworth, international trade means trade between nations. Now let us discuss the three types of international trade. One is export. Export is the outflow of goods and services from one country to another. It involves the inflow of currencies. Second is import. It is buying goods and services from other nations to the home country. It involves inflow of goods and services and outflow of the currencies. Third is interport trade. It is exporting of the goods purchased from the country to another country and reselling of the same product to the another country after adding certain value to it. It is also referred as re-exporting. Now let us understand what is the nature and the importance of the international trade. International trade is similar to the domestic trade, as the purpose of the business is same fundamentally. The parties entering into an agreement for trade, they have common objective and motivation of gaining from the business. through one or multiple activities. The factor of differences are that international trade is typically more costly and complex than the domestic trade. It involves additional cost, tariff barriers, delay due to cross borders, restrictions, limits imposed by the nations in trade, cross culture and difference of currencies, multiple rules, laws, regulations, and various other factors. Industrialization, advanced transportation, globalization, multinational corporations, and outsourcing are all having a major impact on the international trade system. Increasing international trade is crucial to the continuance of the globalization. Without international trade, nations would be limited to the goods and services produced within their own borders. Let us see what is the international trade trends. According to the Global Policy Forum, till 2030, 60% of the world economy be exchanged internationally. That is, the share of the rest of the world in each national economy will be more than the share of its own domestic economy. Many current evidences are in line with this prediction. For example, either country in the world is now the member of or at least one international trade agreement. In such circumstances, the domestic economy will be affected more and more by the world economy at large. This is the level of income, employment, wages, growth, and development of a country is not only a result of its own domestic policies, but also determined by its position in the world economy. No market is spared by this fact. Sometimes a good economic policy regarding its international relations is more beneficial than any other policy arranging domestic economic issues of that country. In most countries, it represents a significant share of gross domestic product. In 2010, the value of international trade achieved was 19 trillion US dollars. That is about 30% of the world GDP. That is about one third of the produced goods and services are exchanged internationally around the world. Let us see the export done by India in the year 2015. The following figure also reflects the export partners. India has exported approximately 7,500 commodities to about 190 countries. Indian exports was 264 billion US dollar worth of commodities in the year 2015. The following table shows India's 11 largest destination for exports. As we can see in the figure below, the maximum share of the export of the highest value of 40.4 US billion dollars was made to the United States, which constituted around 15.3%. Second was with the United Arab Emirates, which has a value of 30.3 US billion dollars, constituting around 11.5% of the overall export. And similarly, Hong Kong, China, United Kingdom, Singapore, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Vietnam. With this, the India has export percentage of 4.6 to 2%. Now let us also look at a glance of import by India. India imports around 6,000 commodities from 140 countries. India imported 390.7 million US dollars worth of commodities in the year 2015, which was down by 15% from the previous year. The following table shows the India's 11 largest sources of importers. India has imported from China which has a value of $61.5 billion with an overall share of 15.8%, followed by Saudi Arabia, which has a value of $21.4 billion and constitutes nearly about 5.5% of the imports, followed by Switzerland, United States, United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, South Korea, Germany, Iraq, Nigeria, Qatar, which has reasonably the share in the overall imports varying from 5.4% to 2.5%. Regulations of international trade. International trade is considered to be the most important determinants of economic development for a country all over the world. The international trade consists of import and export of goods and services, which results into the outflow and inflow of foreign exchange. This is called EXIM trade, that is, export import trade. The international trade is a trade among different nations, so it involves currencies of different nations for exchange. For example, if trade is between India and US, it requires Indian rupees and US dollars. Trade between Europe and India will require Euro and Indian rupee. Every nation trades with multiple other nations, so it needs various foreign currencies. In order to regulate and control its international trade, several acts have been made by the countries through which it governs its international trade. In India, foreign trade is governed by the Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act 1992. Payments for the import and export transactions, they are governed by Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. Physical movements of goods and services through various modes of transportation is governed under Customs Act 1962. Let us understand and see what are the factors for consideration for cross-border trade. Before entering and allowing international trade with the foreign nations, there are many factors that are considered and affects the trade. One is trade and development. International trade helps the country in the economic growth. Every nation is interested in its development, but safety of the nation cannot be put at stake. Impact of the trade and economic development should result in industrialization, technology transfer, know-how, generation of employment, and other such benefits. Another consideration is profit. Every business works for profit. Every country decide on which products and services should be exchanged between the countries. Those goods which affect the gross domestic product of the nation are preferred for the trade. There are various trade theories which help the nation to decide upon which products to be traded. Domestic industry. While deciding on which product and services are to be imported and exported, one of the main factor is considered is protection of the domestic industries. Few products need protection and thus are restricted through various policies. Before liberalizing trade of such goods, economic consequences are taken into consideration. Pattern and volume of trade. A country decide which goods are to be traded by the countries and how much amount of those goods are to be traded. What and how much is to be traded depends upon the growth required in different industries and overall economic development. Another factor is free trade agreements, FTAs. Different nations enter into the foreign trade agreements and adopt liberalization policy. They share different rules and regulations with the member and with the non-member. Policies are also different for the FTAs and non-FTAs. It also affect and reflect the relation the two nations will share with each other. The other considerations are trade and labor economies. Trade across the nation can also affect in reducing inequality, income discrimination, better wages, and employment of the unskilled or semi-skilled labor. Trade and political economy. Trade depends upon the political relations of the nations. Liberalization of the trade policy is also affected by it. These relations are very crucial in deciding the policies and the effects of the potential trade. Internationalization, international policy coordination. Foreign trade determines the international trade relations. Various international agencies and institutions are involved in it. The coordination among the various nations also depend upon the rules and regulations of international organization and its role in promoting the liberal trade among nations. There are various advantages and disadvantages of international trade. Let us discuss one by one what are the advantages of the international trade and the disadvantages of the international trade. First of all, let us discuss how the international trades bring advantages to the countries. First is it increases the efficiency. International trade allows wealthy countries to use their resources like labor, technology, capital more efficiently. Countries have different assets and natural resources like land, labor, capital, and technology. Some countries may produce the same goods more efficiently and therefore sell it more cheaply than other countries. Another benefit is better utilization of resources. The producer, they try to control the cost by optimum combination of factors of production. So there is no misuse of production factors. If a country cannot efficiently produce an item, it can obtain that item by trading with another country that can produce it at lower rates. The third benefit is restriction on monopolies. It helps in eliminating the monopolies. The goods and services can be imported and surplus can be exported. In both cases, the sellers cannot create monopoly in the market. Employment generation is another benefit. When the country increases their export, it expands its manufacturing base, which require more human and thus generates the employment. Economies of scale. The economies of production, transport, management, finance, and advertisement are available to the producers. This efficient utilization of resources help in gaining economies of scale. The other benefits of international trade are foreign direct investment. International trade not only results in increased efficiency but also allow countries to participate in the global economy by encouraging the opportunity of foreign direct investment. Nations can therefore grow more efficiently and can more easily become competitive on with the economic participants. Another benefit is of the cultural diversity. There are cross-cultural exchanges which are being promoted these days with increase in international trade. Globalization has impacted the production as well as the preferences of the customers for increased global trends. People across boundaries learn about different culture, taste preferences, and also use their products. Economic development. It is a multipolar function that requires various factors to grow and develop for an overall economic development. Due to the international trade, both the production and the per capita income increases, which leads to the economic prosperity and overall economic development. There are better international relations. The international trade promotes and develop good relations with the countries, which can lead to economic prosperity and development. There is also the transfer of technology among the nations. With the development of the trade relations, they can transfer and improve the methods, machinery, technical know-how, and technology. It also helps in maintaining the price equality. The prices can be stabilized by the foreign trade. It helps to keep the demand and supply position stable, which in turn stabilizes the prices and making allowances for transport and other expenses. The consumers are provided with more options. It helps the consumer in getting more choices. Consumer get large varieties, quality, brands, and better choices. It also helps in maintaining the quality of the products. International trade requires regulations and laws to be obeyed and maintained by the sellers and producer in foreign markets. Thus, it is required by the companies to maintain standards and quality of the product. World peace. When countries involved in international trading, they want to keep friendly relations with each other in order to increase the trade and invest in resources, and this helps in maintaining congenial relations with other nations. Cooperation at the time of need. International trade promotes better cooperation among the world nations. They help each other at the time of need, like natural calamity, wars, etc. For example, when the earthquake happened in the Nepal in the 2015, India sent immediate help to it. Now also let us look at the disadvantages of the international trade. There is a threat to the domestic industry when the countries import goods or services from the other countries due to the similar products, better products, ready to use products, cheap prices, or for other reasons. They poses the threats to the domestic industry of their home country, especially more to such local industries which cannot compete with the quality or price. For example, Chinese products has impacted the Indian local market to a great extent, especially on handmade products. Shortage in the local market. For capturing the market share, the countries involved into the export too. Much as a result, they face shortages in the local market and there is a noticeable hike in the prices of such products. It also creates the disadvantage of unemployment. When the producer finds that importing of goods can give them more profit than producing it in the local market, they prefer to import, which lead to unemployment in the local market. To achieve economies of scale and cheap labor in foreign countries, manufacturing units are established there, which leads to unemployment in the home country. Due to the international trade, there is excessive utilization of natural resources. The international trade promotes excessive use of natural resources. In order to meet the international requirement of various markets, they must produce the goods in bulk, which involve overutilization of natural resources. Globalization has increased consumerism, which has led to more and more production and hence overutilization and exploitation of natural resources. Colonialism. Trade rules the economy. International trade theories favor business and expansion. Sometimes independent countries become colonies of the other nations. Good example is large corporations and mega projects. Time comes when their whole economy is controlled by the corporate tycoons. They become so powerful that destabilizes the countries economically as well as politically. It also leads to economic rivalries. Every country wants to lead in export and to achieve the economic sound position, which leads to increased competition and countries become economic rivals of each other. They sometimes want to destabilize other rivals by promoting terrorism, wars, and other such kind of activities. Exporting military weapons, atomic weapons like aircraft, missiles, tanks, automatic and semi-automatic guns, etc., is another example of promoting economic rivalry through the international trade. Now let us see the evolution of the international trade theories. So far, we have understood that trade is the base of any economy, and international trade has been existing since long. It also developed as the civilization developed. With the time and development, means of transportation improved and promoted the international trade. History proves that to promote the trade culture, many initiatives were taken worldwide in search of resources, import, export of the products and the resources. To better understand how modern global trade has evolved, it is important to understand how countries traded with one another historically. Over time, economists have developed theories to explain the mechanism of global trade. Globalization has impacted the way international trade has been carried out from last few decades. From time to time, economists has been propounding the theories to promote international trade or define why international trade with the changing economic factors. Different theories from time to time has been produced to understand how, when, and which products are to be traded to take the advantages of international trade. The main historical theories are called classical theories and are from the perspective of a country or country based. By the mid 20th century, the theories began to shift to explain trade from a firm rather than a country perspective. These theories are referred as modern and are firm based or company based theories. Both of these categories, classical and modern, consist of several international theories. Let us discuss both the theories, classical and modern theories. Here in this module, we are giving a brief overview of the theories which are discussed in details in the other modules. Let us see the various theories covered under classical or country-based trade theories. One is mercantilism. This economic theory is based on restricting imports and promoting domestic industry. It is in contrast with the theory of free trade. Second is absolute advantage. The absolute advantage theory was conceived by the Adam Smith and is predominantly a theory of international trade in which a country can produce a good more efficiently than other countries. The third theory under the classical categorization is comparative advantage. Competitive advantages are conditions that allow a company or country to produce a goods or services at a lower price or in a more desirable fashion for customers. These conditions allow the productive entity to generate more sales or superior margins than its competition. The another theory is factors proportion theory. Factors proportion theory of international trade explains that in a two country, two factor, and two commodity framework, different countries are endowed with varying proportions of different factors of production. Let us see what are the modern theories of international trade. First is product life cycle theory. This theory states that early in the product life cycle, all the parts and labor associated with the product come from an area in which it was invented or originated. After the product becomes popular and used in the world markets, production shifts away from the point of origin. This theory was propounded by the Raymond Vernon. The another modern theory is global strategic rivalry. The global strategic rivalry theory of international trade was developed in 1980s by the economist Paul Krugman and the Kevin Lancaster. This theory as a means to examine the impact on trade flows arising from the global strategic rivalry between multinational corporations. Another theory, which is of very recent origin, is the Porter's national competitive advantage. This theory suggests a model considering few factors which provide competitive advantage to the organizations working in a particular country, which are essential ingredients for achieving international competitive success. So, students, let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. Trade is a concept of exchanging the goods and services between two people and the two entities. International trade is a concept of this exchange between the people and the entities of two or more than two countries. There are many advantages that the economies reap due to the trade, like economic growth, employment, economies of scale, better product choices, balance of trade, price stability, etc. But it has limitations and threats to the domestic business, economic rivalry and war, outflow of the capital, exploitation of the natural resources. Since international trade is complex and economists throughout the centuries have attempted to interpret trends and factors through the evolution of the trade theories. We'll discuss the trade theories in the next module. Thank you.